And I'm going to give you today a quick snapshot of the citizen panel that was an example of citizen deliberation right here in Edmonton, which was exciting. And the citizen panel all came about, and the centre itself, when executive committee of the Edmonton City Council passed a motion in 2008 saying, let's look into the feasibility of the university collaborating with the city to look into participatory democracy and the feasibility of having a centre for public involvement. So the first step in looking at that and looking at that partnership, if that would be feasible, was undertaking a citizen panel. So what was the citizen panel? It was a really great example of citizens deliberating here in Edmonton. It was an innovative method that brought 50 citizens from all walks of life, and really important that the group that did come together was very representative. A lot of time was spent recruiting and ensuring that the group was extremely diverse, age, background, education levels, and so that was a big part of this. So one of the goals was for citizens to come together, to deliberate, to think about, and come up with recommendations to council on the budget, on priorities for council as they were developing the budget for Edmonton. The emphasis was very much on the council's decision maker. However, council was very much agreed to take seriously the recommendations of these 50 participants who were coming together, who were spending 6 Saturdays to deliberate and to come up with these recommendations. So again, as I mentioned, it was a combination of random recruitment and targeted recruitment to ensure that there was a really broad, diverse group of people in the room. And I know one councillor mentioned saying, I only knew 3 people in that whole room, and it was how important and how diverse and broad the group was at the time. How was the issue framed? And I think this is really important. A lot of time was spent into developing the materials given to citizens so that they would be able to do the work of deliberation that they needed to. So there was 3 approaches that were booklets. There were also video materials of these approaches. One was connecting citizens and government. The other was keeping our city moving. And the third being create a great place to live for all citizens. So these materials were developed so that citizens could do the work. And so the first part was really about learning, that citizens came together. There was a number of presentations by councillors and others using the approach in the issue book so that citizens could really understand and get a sense of the complexity of their job to make recommendations on some priorities for the city. So after that part, that was a big part, then there was that moment of deliberation, of looking at the trade-offs, of looking at barriers and constraints, of looking at all of the diverse perspectives within the room and trying to come up with some ideas that they could move forward as a group. So the acting part. Some of the impacts, and again, this is brief and not comprehensive, but I think, again, not the usual suspects and not the typical involvement that a lot of citizens of Edmonton had experienced before. Citizens developed some really critical skills in deliberation and understanding what that meant, as you have some sheets on your table to look at debate versus dialogue, about the complexity of municipal decision making, about what the tasks that councillors had to do, about civic involvement. They also, I think, and also the citizen panel, obviously the Centre for Public Involvement. The citizen panel was a proof of concept, and that centre now exists, and that partnership is being developed. It's a formal partnership. It really advanced and expanded public involvement in the city of Edmonton. It was a new type of involvement. It was a really innovative example of citizens really coming together to deliberate in a way that they hadn't done. And it made an important contribution to decision making in terms of the recommendations that were put forward. Here are some perspectives. I think the perspectives themselves really say and demonstrate the impact of this deliberative process on them. The one I really love about, this caused me to reevaluate things I had thought previously. There you see again the opportunities when people of diverse perspectives come together and they really look at the different trade-offs perspectives. My minority voice is heard, I think, is also a really powerful statement. Some from City Council. Edmonton is a leader in public involvement, needs to promote more and encourage other municipalities to do the same. We can help to build this field of knowledge. So I think the citizen panel was a really great example of the vision for involvement and the opportunities that were here and were being pushed forward in Edmonton, and that the panelists did do a good job of coming up with recommendations when given the opportunity and the resources to do so. Just to finish, and I mean, I came up with 5 lessons learned. I think there wasn't necessarily unanimous agreement about if the exact model of the citizen panel, when it was the 6 sessions and that number of participants and the types of recommendations came, if that was perfect, or it was perfect in the way that it was modeled or implemented in that way. But there was agreement that these types of citizen deliberations were very valuable, and there should be other opportunities and other examples of this in Edmonton. So first lesson learned was just around design and process, how important it is that citizens come together to deliberate about the right issues and the right timing and ensuring that they are connected to the key decision points, that project development leading into that there's adequate time for joint project development between the people designing the involvement, within the people organizing it, and adequate time to connecting to key decision points. So really thinking through that the ownership is there amongst the people who are going to implement it. One of them that came out of the citizen panel was just really strengthening internal and external communication, really allowing the broader public to have a greater sense of that process that was happening, being connected more to the conversation that the participants were having inside the panel. Internal champions is another one that, if there had been more people amongst and inside the city too, that were really understanding the process that was happening, seeing how the results could be used across the city beyond just the exercise itself. The second, just sustaining engagement. How important when all of that capacity that was built within the citizen panel in that moment amongst the 50 participants, that there's a lot of opportunities to use that past that event, to utilize those skills that those citizens could go into their own communities, facilitate other deliberative activities. Got a phone call a couple of weeks ago from someone who participated in the citizen panel who now works in Strathcona County and is looking at doing some kind of citizen deliberation there as well. And I really love this quote around, the possibility of more and more citizens have opportunities to participate in these kinds of activities, a critical mass will be built. This one's really simple, digital engagement. The citizen panel involved some webcasting, some use of social media, but there is many, many opportunities for creativity and innovation and using online and all sorts of technologies that could have been more utilized within the citizen panel to connect to the broader community, to involve more people in and to get different kinds of recommendations and feedback from the process itself. Increased opportunities. I think 50 people within the citizen panel came together to participate, and I think there was lots of opportunities to bring greater numbers, and I think it is really important that there is more opportunities for these kinds of things to happen. And just the final really quick one is just the evolution of engagement, that we are in an age of complexity. I think the Matt also talked about this. The issues that we're facing, like climate and energy, like poverty, are very complex, and I think our tools and our processes and our methods of involvement also need to step up to that challenge, and we need to also redesign them and to do things like citizen panels and citizen deliberations and be very innovative and creative in that. And I think the City of Edmonton has an incredible amount of vision, and I think citizen deliberation and citizen participation is a huge part of achieving that vision.